IVM. Welcome to today's episode of This Round is on Me. A few days ago, we celebrated 10 years of the table. And as congratulatory messages kept pouring in, if I'm completely honest, it felt like just another day to me. That was until we had a meeting with our entire team and they started sharing stories of how this restaurant had impacted each of their lives. I think that's when it began sinking in that we had created something special and it was something to be really proud of. But it did get me wondering what these milestones really mean. And I instantly messaged someone whom I look up to dearly, someone who's been in the industry almost as long as I've been alive. I'm just kidding. I'm older than I look. The OG Restaurateur, who is this year going to celebrate 20 years of the iconic brand Olive. Mr. A.D. Singh, welcome to the show.
My pleasure, Gauri. You know what a fan I am of both table and of you and the tremendous job you've done.
Thank you so much.
It's one of our favorite places, and we've been there through the 10 years. Through your ups and downs, your food has always been very good.
Thank you.
Hats off to you for that.
Thank you so much. And, you since 1990, you've been encouraging the growth of this entire standalone restaurant concept in India. And, you've really given it direction, confidence, leadership. And 3 decades later, still going strong, 15 restaurant brands throughout the country, credited with many firsts. And, you really exemplify, what being a top restaurateur is, and that it's more than just a glam job, even though I know you're the party boy of the restaurant scene in India. AD, I have to tell you a really funny story. So the entire time that Jay and I were dating in back in 2008, 2009, Olive in Mahalakshmi was our go-to. And we had this we had this one spot at the bar counter we always sat at. And I still remember the manager, Sachin. I remember the bald Sachin, who then moved on to one of the other restaurants. And it was just really special for us. And, it's 20 years of Olive this year, man. What an achievement. And it feels like our 10 years feel like nothing now. I'm like, I can't even imagine hitting 20. So what does it feel like? And, what does it mean to you?
Gauri, when we started Olive around that time, the life expectancy of a restaurant was 3 years or less. And so, sure enough, in our third year, numbers started falling. But knowing that, we'd started at about just a little past 2, we started working with the Italian Chamber of Commerce. And we put together really the best festival alliance with any country that India had seen as we turned 3. And it was fantastic. It was month-long, and the kind of activities that happened, their regions got involved. So it really went to a much better level than even I'd imagined. And that got our sales right back to where they'd been. And after that, pretty much we haven't looked back. But I think a lot of the reason also is that exactly like you, we're both very hands-on and very passionate about our restaurant. And we don't allow them to slip. We do our best. We keep working hard. And, as I often say, there's really no substitute for that in our business. The minute we move on or lose interest or don't give it time, standards slip and customers know it like that. Also, I think, Gauri, before I got started in those years, there was lots of new trends and new fads, and it had gone away from the customer is king to the employee is king, to you are king, so on and so forth. But I think both of us, through our work, have shown what we believe, which is that the customer is king, and that's why we're in business, We're very caring about our people, of course, but mostly we really think the customer is what keeps us in business, and we do our best to give them the best experience that we can. And I think that accounts for our longevity and for your longevity as well.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I want to, I've actually, this thing about, restaurants having this life, 3 years being that pivotal period. And if you, cross that, then you're sort of, you possibly hit a home run. But I want to kind of pick up on something I've heard you say before, about for budding restaurateurs and entrepreneurs, and the importance of having a business plan and having a concept that you really, have researched and you understand before getting into the space. And if I'm really honest with you, when we launched the table, yes, we did some number crunching and we had all the Excel sheets because, that's what you have to do. But I didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into till we actually started it. We really had no idea how people were going to respond to the food, to the space, to the experience, and how that would translate into numbers. And of course, my one big learning from, all these years is that you can't possibly budget for it all. Like there's always these, unexpected things that come up. And so, and for us, for the first 3 years, we actually really supported the business financially. It was a struggle, but we, for some reason, really believed in it. And then suddenly, you're absolutely right that after that 3-year period, it suddenly just tipped over into this completely different business for us. And I just want to kind of pick your brains a little bit about that, because I know, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are going to be tuning into this, looking for inspiration. And how do you sort of balance that idea of going into this as prepared as possible, but the reality actually being that you can never really prepare for, what this industry is going to throw at you and how people are going to respond to it.
So Gauri, not blowing smoke, but your story is actually remarkable. This is your first restaurant. And sweetie, when you opened Table, it was astonishing for me to see that from a first-time restaurateur. But much more than that, I've been astonished over these 10 years because, getting nice design and, you had a very good chef when you opened. So getting the product right. Okay, great. Well done. Super. Astonishing. Great. But the fact that you've been able to keep those standards up and going over the 10 years, despite your chef leaving, coming back, leaving, and, he's a friend and I'm an admirer. But with whatever you had there, whatever resources you could manage, you've sustained the quality, perhaps even improved it. And that is actually astonishing. It's not common, Gauri. And while I think that it should be an inspiring story for so many that it's possible, but I'd say for both me and for you, when we're trying to guide first-time entrepreneurs, yours is not the story
exactly.
They should follow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely, you're right. You've heard me, and I think it's very important. Our industry is so exciting on the face of it, but as we both know, it's really a lot of hard work, and the more we plan, the better. And again, what I think a lot of first-time restaurateurs don't realize is that this is the industry with the highest failure rate in the world.
Absolutely.
For first-time restaurateurs. So don't start off, don't throw your family money and hard-earned money, livelihoods, etc., into your first restaurant. And I always encourage entrepreneurs to begin, very carefully, maybe take a franchise from a proven successful company and brand, or work with somebody like yourselves, ourselves, or there's so many good people out there today, and learn the business before putting your own money behind your own ideas and your own growth. I really, really believe that.
Yeah.
You're the shining example of not that.
What not to do. Yeah. No, I mean, that's the thing. It's just, that's been our experience is that, and I'll be honest with you, AD, I mean, we went on to do our second restaurant about 8 years after the Table with Misty, and that didn't pan out, the way Table did. And we ended up closing it about 18 months after we opened. But it's funny that you're saying all this because the one big lesson for me from that was that we did focus too much on the numbers and we didn't go with our gut enough. And it's really interesting that I know exactly what you're saying, but we still felt like we should have just gone with our gut instead of what we thought the city needed or what people wanted, or, instead of what we just felt was required. And I think, but I completely agree with you that it's actually about finding that balance, and it's not about, just going and throwing, money away and without really understanding, what you're getting yourself into. So I do agree with you on that. But, you've also talked about how over these years, you've had restaurants that you've closed, or brands that didn't work out as planned. We went through that with Misty, and it was a really hard decision for us to know when to call it a day and, how to move forward from that. I mean, it's a blow to your ego, to yourself as a restaurateur. I kept wondering, I was like, was Table a one-hit wonder? Like, what's going on here? And, of course, there's that part. And then there's also, it was a blow to our bank account. And, there's a huge financial investment that goes into building restaurants, as you know. And we weren't really ready to give it up. And of course, we pivoted to a new brand, which unfortunately opened just a few days before lockdown. So it hasn't seen much of the light of day. But, how do you know when to take that call? I mean, of course, the idea of seeing some things going wrong is when, the numbers aren't adding up and you're putting more into it than getting out of it. But how do you know when to call it a day?
So, before I address that, Gauri, I want to add on to what you were saying. See, to be honest, I think that for a restaurant to resonate with its customers, to strike that chord, there has to be a strong vision and belief. And it's hard to get that from committee and, too much calculations. You're absolutely right there. I myself, from day one, have pretty much done what I believed in, what my gut said, what I was excited about personally and felt wasn't in the market. I've had very good investors and partners, advisors over the years. And I increasingly do try to take their inputs about location, about product, about price points to steer me. But of course, in my case, Gauri, I was lucky. When I started, there was really no competition and we were starved for good products. So I had such a long, good run where I could build up my own understanding, build up goodwill and a following and credibility very easily, The marketplace you've entered is much harder, and that's great for the consumer. There's so many more better products out there today. And I would say that it is true that many of them have been opened by first-time entrepreneurs believing in what their gut said, and they've created something which is, which really speaks to us and much like me. It's a question of how to balance your gut and the learnings and understandings and information, And definitely you should never discount what you believe in, and you've done so well with it. I also believe that with Magazine Street Kitchen, you've been spot on. There was also a gamble all the way over in Baikala, especially at that time. It's been 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah, it'll be 5 years this year.
5 years. And then just focusing on really good quality production and then working on it. You've really grown it in many different innovative ways over the years. But I think even with Magazine Street, it's been always about good quality in whatever you're doing. And which is what people follow you for, and that audience is connected to you for. And I don't know, again, the numbers, but I hope and assume, of course, that Magazine Street Kitchen's also been a good success.
Successful, yeah.
With Misty, I have to say, I personally actually liked it every time I came, and I enjoyed hanging around the bar. I didn't as much enjoy my dining experience, although I had never really analyzed it. We also never talked about it. But I loved coming to the bar, having drinks and your bar snacks and enjoying that vibe. I thought that was great. And why it didn't work, to be honest, I'm not sure myself, And hopefully it won't deter you from, many more new products.
No, I mean, I think, just to sort of clarify there, I think that a couple of things with the space, even the food, we actually, we went into it. You talked about quality and how we've sort of that's been at the forefront of our philosophy throughout with whatever we've done. And I think, if I'm completely honest, we went into it maybe 85% okay with it, because we were like, the rent has kicked in, let's get going, we're almost there, we can, let's open. And I think those are things that we've never done before. But it was the first restaurant where we had investors. And so we felt this accountability that to other people, which we've, until now not really had, other people on board. And so it was really about us taking a call entirely, independently. And I think we just felt this, there was no pressure from anyone, but I think it was self-imposed. And we did some things which were more financially driven than concept driven. And I think that was the biggest learning for me as to, maybe we opened too early before we were ready, and we weren't entirely convinced ourselves, but, we felt this sense of pressure. Yeah. So, and completely self-imposed. I mean, our partners and investors are great and, trust us entirely. But I think it was that more than anything else. And so when we pivoted to May 13, which is a Cantonese brand, we really took our time to make sure that, we were 100% convinced by everything that was going on the menu, or, in terms of the feel, the look, the layout of the space, which we also changed a bit. I know you probably didn't make it out before it closed, but I think that was it. It was that thing of not being 100% ready and convinced before doing it. I think that was what happened. And also a bit of a confusion in terms of, focusing on the bar program and the food equally. And that's one thing that you guys have always done perfectly, is that you have got, a great bar and food program. But it's a very hard balance to achieve. You kind of tend to get known for one or the other, is what I sort of, is what I see. But I think Olive's probably the exception to that rule. But I think those are some of the things that went off. And it was an amazing learning experience for us.
That's the other thing, Gauri, that closing a restaurant down, especially one which you've developed as your baby, it's like doing a PhD in the restaurant business.
Yeah.
I've also closed some of our own products that I personally developed, and every single decision comes right back to me. I loved them. And I did my best, probably kept them going much longer than I should have. I mean, I kept believing that they would, just turn the little corner.
Yeah.
I totally hear you, and I hear your pain. And it's been the same with me. And even today, to be honest, Gauri, I'm such a veteran in the industry. I still make mistakes, you know. And I've got a great team. I think by far the people involved with our group, right from Manu and Chetan to our CFO and to Ashwin, Vikram, so many more. They're just brilliant. We probably have the best team in the F&B industry in this country, I'd say, And despite them and me working together, ideating, we have had to close places and have had failures, this industry is there's no guarantee in it, but I guess we just get better and better and understand it better and better, and therefore more successful. Yeah.
But just coming back to that question, like, how do you make that call? Like you said, there's always that thing. We did that with Misty as well, where we were just like, okay, let's try this one thing and we think it's going to like turn around. And then you try this, you're like, one more month, let's give it one more month. And you keep sort of, you really do that till you're literally like you run dry. But, I don't know if that's the right approach. And how do you sort of finally take that call? Do you give yourself you say, okay, I'm going to give myself 3 months, and if it turns around, great, otherwise you have to be disciplined about it?
So Gauri, in our journey with restaurants that weren't delivering or were failing, we've of course tried to get that product, and wherever we saw the gaps, just like you said. What our company is also fortunate, because we have so many good brands. So in some cases, we've tried to replace a failing brand with another one of our own brands, if it fits into the space, the market, etc. In some cases, for example, the Olive Beach in Bangalore, which has been, really popular and much loved, and a baby of Chef Manu's as well, almost from the beginning. that had done, I can't now remember, I think by that time, 12 years or something. Numbers were obviously going down and so on. So Manu and me put together a very nice refreshment, moved the bar out, created a bit of a new energy and a new feel to it, spent a bit of money, but totally in line with what the product was. And then when it reopened, give it our own push and spent some time and energy behind it. And to be honest, the numbers almost doubled, which was really refreshing to see. And it's been at that sort of level for, I think it's been about 4 years now, maybe 4.5 years, So just like you, yeah, we try so much in so many different directions to save. I know when I had my first Japanese restaurant, which I loved, called Ai in Delhi, we were doing well, but just not well enough. Always at different levels, because we spent a lot behind it as well. And probably by the time I finally closed it, I felt I should have probably closed it a year before, because obviously that year we'd lost that much more. But there's no formula for it, It's we have had places we've been able to turn around, so you should never give up, of course.
Yeah.
But there's a limit to every place, every pocket, and you have to go with that.
Yeah. So again, follow your gut, I guess, and follow it honestly, I think. Yeah. I mean, sort of, I'm spending a little bit more time on the challenges of our business, because we always celebrate the successes, but, we don't spend enough time maybe revisiting and learning from our, from the more challenging times. And I think the last year has been, in my sort of limited period in this industry, I think the last year has just been, for everybody in any industry, I'm sure, exceptionally challenging. And it is, it's in the past now, and we're all sort of looking at, the new year with renewed energy. What do you sort of see have been like the biggest lessons for you from last year? And are you sort of rethinking strategy in any way for the year ahead, or do you see this more as a bump in the road and things coming back to where they were before this?
So Gauri, because this happened, I think we're all shaken up that could it happen again anytime in our journeys ahead of us, and how do we prepare for it next time? Unfortunately, there are no insurances for something like this, which we would have taken it. We've been exploring for years what's best we can take, as I'm sure so many of us have. Even now, there's no insurance which would really help in a situation. The other, sort of thing to take away, of course, everybody says keep a buffer. But, all of us are anyway trying very hard to maximize profit in our businesses. So we're doing the best we can in any case. Third sort of life jacket, I guess, is diversification. So if one is diverse, say, for example, as restaurateurs, we were also very online. The online business was a bit slow in the beginning of the pandemic because of the worries, but then that's proved to be very strong subsequently. So that's one sort of life jacket one can have ready. If you were in, say, the retail food business, there's a lot of potential in that as well, of course. So diversifying will help strengthen for future circumstances like this, for sure. But what has been the one positive that's happened through this for us? We're always working hard to trim fat, cut costs. But as the company has grown, obviously we've acquired fat, very hard to cut it. So this pandemic, because, it's been a disaster everywhere, as you said, all our teams are also very supportive. And we've been trimming the fat everywhere. And it's been a learning for them and for me that just, how tightly we can get by.
Yeah.
And that gives us, that bit more margin, even in tough times, to be able to be profitable and on our feet. And frankly, the last quarter for our group has been very encouraging because so far as I can see, the F&B business as an industry is still only at about 50% back. Our group in December, we were at 60% of our past sales because brand credibility, outdoor areas, etc. But even at that, we've had a couple of profitable months, which are the same sales we would never have had in the past. So that's very encouraging for us and our investors and people around us, our ecosystem, for the future as well.
Yeah.
And I think for our listeners who are all in the same boat as us at different levels, I think that's the one learning to say that use it as an opportunity. I'm not necessarily saying pivot, that's a word everybody's using and many people are doing it. With success and failure already, I'm seeing some lovely stores in Bombay that change from their core business into the food business, but they're struggling. Maybe it worked that first month or so, but against what they were doing, And there are things that we've all developed expertise and understanding at, and we shouldn't be quick to abandon that and go into something else. But I believe strengthening what we're doing in allied areas where we have some level of knowledge and expertise seems to me, at least, that's the path I'm following. I'm trying to resist the pressure to pivot as...
No, I mean, I completely agree with you, actually. We had a strategy meeting and one of the first in a long time with, a few of our stakeholders. So it was, a regular guest. It was one of our vendors. It was a fellow restaurateur. And it was very interesting because the one sort of big takeaway for me from that was that this is don't do a reactionary, don't make reactionary decisions, that just because something was in demand during lockdown, that it is the way forward, for the long haul. And so that was very interesting, because a lot of people felt like, oh, no one's going to restaurants. Are restaurants really the way forward? Should we be looking more at delivery? And everyone was like, of course, people are going to go back out to restaurants. It's not something that is going to ever really die. It's just a matter of time. And, and everyone jumping into the cloud kitchen space. I mean, obviously now it's become a hugely sort of saturated market. And, so it remains to be seen sort of what happens in that space. But I think it's that, like sort of I think the kind of things that you've just talked about are the sort of the big opportunities and lessons from this situation, but not necessarily with completely pivoting concepts either. So, it's definitely been a sort of interesting period of learning for me in spite of the disastrous situation. But, AD sort of, there's been, I'll be honest, at the beginning of this year, I'm exhausted. I think that there's been, there's this last year, we were kind of on this, we were like hamster on wheels and just, doing whatever needed to be done to keep everything going, keep the team motivated. We actually just launched a new brand right in the same weekend, the table turned 10. And I think that's one thing that I see with people like us who are so actively involved in this business, that sometimes it does, the only time I really felt relaxed was not like on a vacation, but for the 10 days when lockdown happened and we literally had completely shut down. And there was nothing for me to do vis-a-vis work because we were like, okay, we don't know where this is going. We're just closed for now. And I literally had the best time ever. I know this sounds really bad, but I just had the most, I had the best sleep. I had, the best everything. And we were cooking. We were, it was just because we didn't really know the extent of how bad this was going to get, I guess, at that point. And that was my true vacation, sitting right at home, but just with business closed. So, I mean, how are you still so enthusiastic, whatever, almost 30 years into this business? I mean, of course you love it, but really, like, what drives you and how do you kind of, keep up your energy after all of these ups and downs?
So, for me, Gauri, exactly like you, we are so hands-on and there's been so much pressure on us. It's been a very tough year, of course, for everybody worldwide, but very tough for people who that, involved with their businesses. Plus financial pressure for our companies and,
yeah.
In a way being bigger, we have 25 restaurants to worry about and therefore much larger losses and larger responsibilities as well. At the same time, there was a lot of pressure and tension for me because, we could not look after our staff the way not only have we always done, but we've always tried very hard to do something we pride ourselves on. We want to be one of the most HR forward companies in the country. And we were not able to do what we'd like to do through this last year. So that put a lot of pressure on me as well. And then, of course, for all of us, seeing pictures of migrants and people starving and, India's anyway not easy and life's not easy, but it was just so much worse at this time. That was like a dagger to the heart for all of us. And I was really proud of the way that the NRAI group of all of us, we all rallied, even through such tough times for ourselves and our own teams, but tried our best to support wherever we could nationally. And I think that was a very critical effort we did. We must keep doing it to the best of our abilities. And that also, I think, was a huge pressure, a huge stress point, a huge worry point for us to see all that through that. But for me, I got to say what I've always sort of had a balance in my life, Gauri. I try and give enough time, of course, to my wife and my family. And I have small children, And what was lovely was through some of the dark moments of this period, I'd be on the call, have a tough call. Maybe I'd be shouting or I'd be very visibly upset.
I can't imagine you shouting ever.
It is rare, but it does happen. And my kids would come up and hug me or jump on my lap. And they somehow realize and say, we love you, Dada. And, that just takes all your stress away and helps you balance what's important, And I think also, of course, both of us love what we do. And that's, it's very rare, that I ever wake up not wanting to go to work or worrying about the restaurants or trying to create something fun and exciting there for our customers. So I really enjoy it. And I think that's what's helped me, keep going so enthusiastically for so long.
That's one thing that I always tell people, who want to get into this industry from a completely different, possibly not a hospitality background like we did, is that just make sure you really love the idea of what you're going to be doing, because that's the one thing that's going to keep you going for a long time till you start seeing money in the bank. So, you better sort of love it.
Gauri, I would stay on that also, that through my 30 years, through your 10 years, we know that it's a difficult business. It's not easy. A lot of potential, a lot of future, but it's been difficult. Also because there's so much unregulated restaurants and people in the same business cutting very large slices of the pie without paying their taxes, their dues, their fees, etc. Therefore, being able to offer at very low price points, making it much harder for people like us as well. And I think in our country, companies like yours and mine, we try to, as far as we can, work with the laws and pay our taxes and support the economy on a wider scale, do it the right way. It is harder in India for sure. And I'm somewhat hopeful that the after effects of this pandemic will be that people will largely move away from fly-by-night operators where standards and hygiene would be a question mark.
I agree.
Which would be, really, and come back to places which work hard and spend money and effort on doing their best for the customer on these points. And I'm therefore hopeful that the future for, restaurateurs and like ourselves, and there's so many more, could possibly be that much better.
Mm-hmm.
So, cross fingers.
Yeah, I always say, with the stock market just having hit 50,000, and I kind of draw an analogy with our industry and just say that, I think that pre-pandemic the industry was exploding. And I think that one thing that's happened is a slight correction, if I can use that word, for our industry, and just in terms of, and I think that that's going to happen more and more going forward in terms of, like you said, the sort of unorganized and people being more discerning and giving value to the things that, the organized industry actually takes care of. And I think that that's definitely something that I hope and I think will happen. So yeah, no, I mean, so much learning, AD. This has been such a treat listening to you. And, and it's so reassuring to hear you say some of the things that, what we're thinking. And sometimes we're not sure if this is the right approach, but this has been so sort of enriching. I'm going to come to a slightly lighter part of the show now, which is just a rapid fire. Just say the first few things that come to your mind. What are you most proud of?
My kids.
Oh, yeah. I vouch for that for sure. What's your go-to comfort food? That's like asking you to pick one of your kids, but
yeah. But comfort food wise, everybody laughs because I eat a lot of popcorn. It's low fat, but I need it does. But if I could also answer saying like food I love in my places, probably the dish I eat the most is the salmon tartar at our Japanese restaurants.
Yeah,
it's yummy, it's light, it's healthy, it's delicious.
Great. You are known as one of the best hosts in the country. What's your secret? What's the one tip that's never failed you?
Well, to be honest, my secret is that I'm actually somewhat shy. I'm not a gregarious person. But because I've been in this industry so long and I've known so many people through their ups and downs and we've shared so much, it's a pleasure to host them. And I think that's what extends to the things we do.
Yeah. What's one of the best books you've read in the recent past? I know you're a voracious reader, so
I'm currently reading Obama's
Promised Land. I'm reading that.
And I'm really enjoying it. And funnily enough, because it is through this time of, the whole Trump moving election, on and Biden coming in, and a lot of the issues that we've seen and we will see much more, the polarization. A lot of these also worries for us here as well. So it's very on point for me, and I'm really enjoying it.
And finally, what would be your message to budding entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, not necessarily from the restaurant industry, but entrepreneurs at large?
So I'd say that you and I have covered actually a lot of messages in our chat today. I'd say good luck. Welcome to the industry. It's very exciting. But as Gauri said, you gotta love it. Don't get in for the wrong reasons. Don't get in thinking I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm sure there are easier ways to do that. If you love it, most welcome. Look forward to seeing you in this space.
Great. You've really been such an inspiration to me, and it's because of your honesty and grace, with which you've spoken about your experiences. I wish you all the very best for the next 20 and longer. And I just hope this year is really fantastic for you and your team and, of course, your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauri. It's been a pleasure always. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, AD. That was really fun. It's so true. It's all about passion at the end of the day. Whether it's 10 years of restauranting or 6 months of podcasting, I'm still completely broke, but I've loved every single minute of it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And if you like this show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM Podcast Network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or website or wherever else you get your podcasts from. You can also follow us on social media. We're at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm at gdevidyal on Instagram and at Gauri Details on Twitter.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, Storytel and The Whole Truth Foods. Thank you for supporting us. We have a new show out this week, Candid Kannan with Siddharth Kannan. Sid K is a well-known RJ. He has an incredible show with some of the most amazing Bollywood celebrities. As part of the first week's episode, we're releasing 5 episodes at one time, so you can get your fill of Sid. You can hear him talk to Varun Dhawan, Anil Kapoor, Anurag Kashyap, Bhumi Pednekar, and a whole lot more. This week on the Edges and Sledges podcast with Varun, DJ, and Ashwin, hear them talk about the historic victory that India achieved at Gaba. Maruk Inayat had an amazing talk with Gul Panag. They spoke about the farmer protests and why Bollywood celebs are acting the way that they are. And finally, Shunya 1 is back this week. Shiladitya and me talk to Anirudh Singla from Pepper Content. We have a great lineup of guests coming up in the coming weeks, including Deepak Abid, the co-founder of India Gold. Definitely check that out. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
2020 is a difficult year. A global pandemic, protests, elections, recessions. You get the picture. What we need is a space where we can have nuanced discussions about global affairs and foreign policy. That's where I come in. My name is Hamsini Hariharan and I host the States of Anarchy podcast. Every second Tuesday, I speak to experts in the field of international relations to make a little more sense of the world. So join me on the IVM podcast app, website, or wherever you're listening to me right now.